Try to get a guest about once a year to come and talk, and we are really excited tonight to have Zac McCamey. And I'm going to introduce him and tell you a little bit about him. He's a project manager by trade, but he's been buying, selling, and collecting glass since he was 12 years old. He lives in Northeast Ohio with his partner of 13 years, Paul, who's going to be helping him tonight.
No. I mean,
Dan.
sorry.
Dan.
Yes.
Dan, sorry.
And he's back home.
Susan wrote
Paul's
it
just
down.
a good friend.
Oh, Paul's just a good friend, sorry.
Don't you blame me. You told me.
And travels to flea markets, antique malls, and thrift stores all over in search of glass. He's a member and past president and also VP and show chair of the Western Reserve Glass Club. And he's a soon-to-be board member of the Vaseline Glass Collectors. He's also a member of the Stretch Glass Society, Duncan Glass Society, National Cambridge Collectors, and a number of additional glass organizations. In addition to glass, he also collects vintage Halloween items, which is how we're going to hear about that in a minute, and movie posters along with 1960s and 1970s artwork. And with that, I'm going to tell you a little bit story about the first time I met Zac, which was last summer. I went to the Stretch Glass convention, and similar to our convention, although on a much smaller scale, they have members that create table settings. And I'm very competitive, and I went in there thinking I was going to have, by sure, the best table setting. I had this great stretch glass. It was a Japanese theme. I had slices of trees. I had fans galore. I had placemats, and I was just in there like, oh, I'm gonna win this thing, even though there is no contest. And there's some other nice tables that just had glass on them. But I walk in the door with my bins, and there is this table. And it's not just a giant table, it's surrounded by a big portable tent that is encased everywhere. It's black lights. And it's a table service for six, sorry. Not four, six. Of Topaz Stretch by assorted companies. There's a giant 6-foot Frankenstein creature sitting at the table. There's sideboards with accent pieces. And I went up to Cal, and many of you know Cal because he did a presentation about a year ago on stretch glass, and I said, who the hell did this? It was Zac. So without further ado, Zac.
All right. Thank you very much. And first, I do want to say one thing real quick. I've been coming to your show for a number of years, and the show's always been great. I've always found decent stuff. The dealers have been great. But what I was really blown away this year was the hospitality that you afford to your dealers. I've done shows, God, I've been doing shows since I was 16, so in the 80s, and I've never had a group that is so welcoming and caring and helping feed us and dedicated. It's great. It was great. The group has just been outstanding. So I wanted to start off with that. And believe me, I'll be bringing a lot of this back to our club, which is the Western Reserve Club. And we have a show, off and on, it's been similar to yours, and we've changed it back and forth. But, it was very heartwarming to see. And the food was great. Thank you. I went way off my keto diet.
What was your favorite soup?
What's that?
What was your favorite soup? Did you try them all?
Okay, I had the one that had chicken in it was excellent.
The chicken noodle?
The chicken noodle was excellent. There was one, wasn't it? It was chicken and cream and maybe mushrooms or.
Yeah, the mushrooms.
That was really good. The potato was the best.
That's beef. She brings it on Sundays. No, that's beef. Everyone expects their potato.
Potato soup was. I hate to say it was just like mine.
Oh.
So I love it. That was wonderful. All right. So the talk tonight is Dolphin Candlesticks, and the first question I always get from everybody is, "They don't look like a dolphin to me." Mm-hmm. And there's truth to that. They're not dolphins like Flipper. All right. They're not the Flipper dolphins. They're actually dolphin fish. If you've ever gone to a restaurant and had grilled mahi-mahi, you were eating one of these guys. Okay, that's the dolphin fish. They are stylized, and they started back in France probably, they don't really know, but they figure in the 1700s. The Baccarat company started making these dolphin candlesticks. And it was because of Baccarat that I actually got into dolphins, because I collected candlesticks, and my partner and I, it was like 14 years ago, we were in Las Vegas at the Baccarat store. And they had these gorgeous dolphin candlesticks with 3 hurricane shades on it. And there was a pair of them there. And they were $18,000. And I'm like, well, I could never do that, you know? And then the woman's like, oh, you misunderstand, that they're $18,000 each. So I'm like, oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, not even if I won a lottery. So, and I didn't bring one because it's just I needed to clean it and I needed to pack it, but I was like, hey, I can make something that looks like this. So I put together Cambridge Dolphin Candlestick with the arms, 2 sets of arms, 1 vases, 1 with candle holders, and a vase on the top. And they look and lots of prisms and all the babouchets and all that, so they look really cool. And I was like, you know, I really like these dolphins. So I started picking them up here and there. And this is probably about, well, there's about 90 here, and I have pairs of all of them. There are, I have about 150 total pairs. So, and when you come up here and look, it starts with the oldest at this end, going all the way down to the newest. Most of these are American. There are a few foreign ones, and I'll point those out. But the starting down here on this end, like I said, Baccarat, they started in 1760, 1770. Well, about 1820, Boston Sandwich was like, hey, those are pretty cool. And so they copied them. And the Vaseline one here, that's about 1830, 40, in between there. I have a pair of those. They're by Boston Sandwich, in the Vaseline. They made them in clear, they made them in other colors. The white one in front, that is a Boston Sandwich also. It's an original. That would be about 1840. The clam broth is actually New England glass. So they were competitors, so they started copying. Another Boston Sandwich, but a little bit later. He's probably 1850. And then one of the more rare ones on this table is, I have a pair of these. Those are Boston and Sandwich. Those are 1840s. But if you look at the candle cup, it has dolphins all the way around it. And later on, you'll see down there, Imperial copied that in the 70s and had them made. They were reproductions for the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Another, that could be New England, that could be Boston, we're not really sure. So they were making them, and on this little baby here, Paul calls that a make-do. It was a gorgeous candlestick that broke, and somebody years ago cut it off and put an electric light on it, in a shade.
Still has the silk cord on it too.
Yeah. So now the flint one in front of it, now of course those are all flint, even the milk glass. That flint one was sold to me as South Boston, and I knew it wasn't South Boston. It's actually McKee, 1850, and in the tail it's one of the neatest ones. It has a heart in the tail, so that one's really cool. So continuing on in the 1800s. This iron one, that's solid iron. I don't know exactly why. But, iron companies were copying, glass companies copying, porcelain companies. They all copied each other. At first, some people thought, oh, maybe it's, an original, for making a mold from, but it isn't. It was actually, painted, and there probably was a pair of them. Now, these two little guys here, these are at the end of the 18th century, about 1898. They're both by Northwood. They were made in Vaseline, clear, opalescent, and blue. And we'll talk about Heisey a little later, copying those. And then this blue one here, I date it to the 1800s, but I'm not really sure who. It's European. It's probably Probably German. Don't know, but very similar to these. So somebody was copying somebody. So the late, 1900, Dolphins were out. They were not popular. Companies stopped making them. About 1922, one company brought them back. And can anyone tell me why in 1922 they'd be bringing Dolphin Candlesticks back?
Soldiers are coming back.
What happened that year?
Possibly, but what happened in the 20s? The first time ever happened in the 20s. Depression was a little bit later. People started collecting glassware. They had a disposable income. And in the teens, Wallace Nutting brought out these books on antiques. There was some pictures of some antique glass in there. And the companies were like, hey, we can make that. Let's make it, So one of the first, it may not be the first, but one of the first is this Cambridge one right here. In the 70s, there were 4 of these found in a glass worker's house. He worked in Cambridge in the 20s. They are the only ones ever known to be made by Cambridge in Vaseline. And if you look at the base, it's totally different. We'll see some other Cambridge ones here, and the base is totally different. That was one of the first. Now, the book by West on Westmoreland, he states that Westmoreland was the first one to come out in the 20s with dolphins, and it's not true. They were about 2 years later. And he also said it was a completely original design, which if you could show one of those. That is a Westmoreland Dolphin. It's a 1049. They started making those in the 20s, maybe 25. They made them, they actually could still be produced today because Mosser owns the mold. He stated in the book that it was definitely an original mold. It's not. It's a Boston and Sandwich design. Boston Sandwich has a Vaseline one that is authentic to them back in the 1830s. So don't always believe everything you read in the books. We all can make lots of mistakes. Now, Westmoreland in the 20s, they made a number of different colors. They made pink with satin. They made green, which glows a lot with uranium in it. They made the blue, that has satin on it also. They did some amber with silver overlays. They did quite a different. They made bowls. They made other pieces to go with it. Excuse the tarnish. This one dates from the 20s. That's bohemian. Just a neat candlestick. Little cut top on that. Well, all these companies are starting making that, the different dolphins. And a company out of Germany called Reich, they thought, we could make these and we could make them look original. So they started producing, like this one or the Vaseline one. Now these are flint, made in the 20s. Exactly how they were made in the 1830s. They have wafer construction. They were 2 pieces molded and then put together with wafers. And they were sold to unscrupulous antique dealers to sell, to the market as original Boston Sandwich. Yes?
What do you mean by flint?
It's a lead-based glass. In the 1860s, flint kind of went out of favor because they figured out how to make soda ash glass, and I think it was Hobbs that did that. So they didn't have the lead in them. It was cheaper to make, could produce it way faster. So, the first blue table there, all of those are flint glass. So a couple of these are flint glass. Well, not those 3, I'm sorry. Yes, those over there. A couple of these are flint because they were reproductions. And they not only did they do original colors, they also did combinations like that blue with the clam broth. That's a German one from the 20s, made to look like it was an old one from the 1840s. It's kind of a mix coming down this way. Actually, the one that looks like a Westmoreland, that's a German one also from the 20s. The custard one front here, that's Cambridge Stratford line. They made 3 different colors of the custard. That actually has a clear glass mixed into it to make like a slag effect. They have a nutmeg stained one, and then a straight custard. More Cambridge over here. This is a mulberry in the back, which is 1920s. And that one is actually a sponge acid finish that they did to make it look antique. So not only Cambridge was doing it, but Heisey was like, hey, we can make these too. There's 3 Heisey here. This is a Moongleam. Now Heisey actually found one of the original salesmen from Boston Sandwich. And he had a bunch of stuff. When they closed in the 1880s, he ended up with a bunch of stuff. And Heisey bought it all. They bought wooden molds that are carved out of mahogany in that dolphin. And they're at the Heisey Museum now that you can see. And they decided, we're going to make dolphins too. Now they did not mark them Heisey because they are a reproduction. So they left the Heisey mark off them. Another kind of shady thing to do. This was the Ideal Glass Company up in New York. Bought these Heisey blanks, cut off the top, and they made them into lamps, and then they decorated them. The amber one there, that's Heisey. And they also made in Heisey, they made cobalt blue, they made Sahara. Cobalt blue runs about the same as the Moongleam. They're probably in the $1,500 range for those. Sahara runs about $2,500 to find a pair of those. Zircon sells, the last pair sold for $11,000 in zircon. They made 137 of them. It's crazy how they know that.
Is that a color?
Yes. Zircon is a color that was made in the late 30s. It's like a aqua, kind of blue-green aqua. They did the Saturn line in it, and they did another line I don't remember. But zircon's very high. It's like tangerine. Yeah, Whirlpool. That's right. So continuing on, up in the front here, another reproduction, 1920s, made to look like green clam broth. I bought that as an original, and it's not. But a little tuition, and still, it's an almost 100-year-old candlestick too. So now these flat bottom round, those are the Stratford line, but without the Stratford base. Those were made for the markets in Europe. They were made by Cambridge in Cambridge, Ohio, but they took and made a smaller base on them, and they sold them in Cambridge glass from the UK.
As opposed to.
Yeah, as opposed to any of those. Yeah.
So this is the Stratford base here, and this is the flat plate base.
And they made those in amber, pink, emerald, and clear in the flat base. Cambridge made a lot of dolphins over the years. On this next one here, very hard to find, very, very hard to find. Rubina, famous color that Cambridge made. It did not do well in these candlesticks. It's very dark because it's so thick, but extremely hard to find, and everybody wants them. Now, other than the big ones that Heisey made, Heisey also made these in 1932. 33 years after the originals were made. But they sold them as early American pattern glass, rare 1830s. And they're basically the same. They're the petticoat dolphins, what they're called. They even called them petticoat dolphins, which Northwood did. But they were only 30 years old at the time. Continuing on, let's switch sides. All right. That one tonight will be raffled off. That's a Cambridge Amber, 1928, Stratford base, and we're gonna have a little thing. You're gonna get one of you will win it tonight. Continuing on, we have. Let's go with the two in the front. Now, yeah, well, that's a Westmoreland, and if you notice, it's yellow, clear, yellow. And that's a Cambridge. Yellow, clear, yellow. So somebody copied somebody, I'm not really sure who. Cambridge called that color golden showers. Yes, I know. But they did all kinds of advertising, you know, of their golden showers glass. I don't know. I've never been able to find out on that. Still in the 20s, you know, you had a lot more, another more Cambridge. There's 3 different blues here. The one on the left is Bluebell, which was late, probably 1928. The 2 other blues here are Cobalt number 1 and number 2. That's number 1, the other one's number 2. Number 1 has uranium in it. So you put the black light on it, it glows. Cobalt number 2, well, and Cobalt number 1 now is being called Aurora. They found some catalog references and they think it's Aurora. If you don't mind, I'm gonna sit down for a minute. Let Paul continue being Vanna. Ow. All right, and then what's next there? All right, more Cambridge. Cambridge changed in 1931. They changed the bases of their glasses. It's the Dolphins. It's not the Stratford base anymore. It's now called the 150s. They're a square base that's amber and in cobalt. They also made it in carmine. Those are pretty hard to find in the carmine. Then later on, Cambridge in the 40s made them in Crown Tuscan.
Oh, I love that.
And then in the 50s, just before they closed in 1958 for the final time. In January of 58, they made both Moonstone and Milk Glass. And they were both made for less than 6 months. Now they'll be both in this standard style, but they'll also be in ones with matching Bobèche and prisms and hurricane shades. I didn't bring a hurricane shade. I had one on my booth yesterday, but then those are the 20s also. Those are Tiffin. So those are actually U.S. glass made, sold under the Tiffin name. And in jade, they're very hard to find in jade. But they made lots of them in the green, which glows beautifully, the pink and the blue, reflex green, sky blue, and I don't remember what Tiffin's name was for that pink. They did have a definite name. So moving to the PVs, yeah. The blue and the citron are PV, which I can never pronounce the name, Portier Verstal.
Portu, not French. Portu.
Yes. Those were made in the 40s, 50s. They were made in straight ones like that, or they were made in hurricanes also. Basically the 3 colors. The Clanbroth is very hard to find. You can find the citron and the blue with the matching citron and blue shades. And if you notice on those, the actual candle cup itself on the hurricanes are totally different than on the straight up. And then next to it is one that I found, just a weird oddball, pottery copy, probably Taiwan. If you look, there's a carnival one in the PV style, a little farther down, if you want to grab that. That beautiful coloring, beautiful iridescence, actually not bad made. Comes from the late 70s, from Taiwan. And you'll see them today. AA Import still has them in pink. They have them in a weird blue. And they're all, they're the old molds, and they're being made in Taiwan. So what are we coming into next? Yeah. All right. Do you know who Reuben Haley was?
Yes.
Okay. The guy that designed Ruberamic. Okay. Worked for Consolidated. He actually designed this style of candlestick. Now, I do not have a pair of consolidated candlesticks. I have some very rare ones, I have some very expensive ones. Consolidated Dolphins are nearly impossible to get. They are clear and they have a wash color over them, either a green or a yellow. But they made that style. He designed that style. A few years later, after he had passed, his son, in the, I think it was late 40s, got consolidated to make them from a new mold, and that's the one the one you had in your hand. That has a ground bottom, and that's actually a Haley from Consolidated, but in the 40s. A few years later, another company, Imperial, started making, and that's one that has a not cut off bottom, and there should be one over there that is cut off. And other colors are, there's, yeah. That's in their nutmeg color. Usually the Imperial ones will be signed with the IG and they'll be stippled on the bottom. And then if you, a little farther down, Paul, there is a clear one that's big, real big.
It's a sea of dolphins.
Yeah, it looks just like the Imperial, but it's much taller.
It's not frosted.
Keep going down, farther down, farther down. There you
Okay,
go.
I'm looking over there. Whoa, that's heavy.
That one looks exactly, it is really designed exactly like the other Imperials, except for it's an inch taller, and it was made in Ireland. And the only reason I know that is because when I bought them, they had these Irish stickers on them. Didn't say name, just said made in Ireland. So somebody else copying, going back and forth across the pond. Right in the, at this, we're working into the 1970s here, 60s, 70s. Imperial started making a lot of dolphins again for the Metropolitan Museum of Art. So they'll be marked MMA on the bottom. They made them in Vaseline glass, which they must have made a million of them. Because the Vaseline ones you find all the time. And you can get a pair of those on eBay for like 99 bucks. And they're a great Vaseline candlestick. Then right next to it is a gold color that they make. Tons of uranium. Where's the black light at? Oh, right here. As much uranium as in the Vaseline. And they glow beautifully. And then next to it is a olive green, a drab green, that was made with a ton of uranium in it, and it glows just as much as the other.
Oh my gosh.
Quick little plug in here. I'm going to be writing a book on uranium glass. I'm actually in the middle of it right now with a friend of mine, so look for that on Amazon.
Blue one under the light?
Yes, the one that's cobalt number 1. It's over here towards this way. Stratford, I think it's that one, yeah. Now it's kind of bright in here, so it's kind of hard to see, but if it's in a dark room, it really glows green. So, then continuing on, they also made some, Imperial made ones that were exact reproductions of originals, that one, that has the painting on it like the original did, from Boston Sandwich. They sold those Christmas of '78 is the only time they sold those, and those are kind of hard to find. Actually, I've seen more of the original Boston Sandwich painted like that than I've seen of Imperials. Then also Imperial made, now that looks like Imperial, but that has GHC on the bottom, and right now I'm at a loss for what it stood for. It was from the 60s. It was an American company that had the mold made and had them made in Taiwan. And you'll find them cleared in that blue. And a lot of people you'll see that somebody has scraped off the GHC on the bottom because they're trying to say, oh no, these are original Boston Sandwich. They're not. Some of the big Imperials there with the Dolphin cups. That's an emerald green. They made that in green, clear, 3 or 4 different blues, clam broth, all clam broth, and also I think there's one there that's blue and milk. That's the other style, but there's a big one too with the milk, yeah. Those are all Imperial. You know, they were all made for the Metropolitan Museum of Art. Not a lot were made of any of them. You do see them once in a while. I've noticed the prices are creeping up. A lot of people are asking now over $100 for a pair of those. But they're great quality candlestick. They're heavy, they're beautifully done. Imperial, I don't think, gets enough credit for what they did. And they were in the Metropolitan Museum of Art catalogs. Actually, the Metropolitan Museum of Art commissioned Island Mold to make those molds off of original pieces they had. So they're very authentic in a lot of ways, and they marked them MMA, so you know when they were made, and I think that's a great thing. Okay, that's Imperial too. Now that was made for LeVay. Is it LeVay? Yes, LeVay out of Chicago. It's one of I think there was 150 of them made in the iridescent. They also made a blue iridescent. Now that was in the regular catalog. You see those quite a bit. And there's a picture in one of their catalogs of a pink pair. Now I've been doing this close to 15 years and I have not been able to find a pink iridescent Imperial candlestick. They might be out there. I don't know. I'm always still looking. That's another Imperial. Different colors. And of course they made, they paired both of those with the Heisey stemware that they made, Old Williamsburg. And those were the candlesticks that went with it, if you collected the Old Williamsburg. That one is a Westmoreland. Now Westmoreland, they started in the 20s with that base. And they produced them all the way through 1984 when they closed. That would be in the 70s. I think they called that Heritage Blue Opalescent. And the milk glass in that style is another one. They produced so many of those. They're just a million. Now that's a lamp that was turned into a lamp by Westmoreland. Those you can find, if they're more than $25 a pair, pass them up. But if you do see them and they're under $25, it's a good deal. Pick up the Pride one. The Pride one. The rainbow one. Sorry, these kind of that's a middle class one that a friend of mine made. He was going to make a pair of them for me for Christmas, and that one took so long. He's